is my good fortune to have met so many icons in the Black community. Rosa Parks, Malcolm X, Desmond Tutu, Cecily Tyson, Johnny Cochran, Stokely Carmichael, uh, Mamie Till, Emmett Till, mother. I met and talked with all of them, Betty Shabazz, etc. So I'm going to give you two of them, experiences I've had with two of them, which I think the public never really know and understand the beauty of their character. In the spring of 1963, I was a student leader at North Carolina Central University in Durham. Eagle. We got an Aggie in the house, I'm sure. And we had been struggling as students against the segregation laws of North Carolina and the South in general. And we were getting arrested, we were protesting downtown Durham, and the college was up in an uproar. And we found out that Malcolm X was going to be speaking at Duke University, and North Carolina Central was a Black college. And we said, if he can speak at Duke, why can't he speak at North Carolina Central? So we got in touch with him and said, look, we need you to alter your schedule and come speak to us as young people. We want to hear what you have to say. So Malcolm said, well, okay, fine. Just give me a time and I'll be there. Well, when the president of the college got wind that Malcolm X was coming to the college, he called us in and he said, you can't bring that man here. You students have been demonstrating and closing stores and boycotting, and the state is on my back. And now you want to bring this Malcolm X here. So I cannot give you the facilities to let him speak. So we said, okay. But North Carolina Central has a lawn where all the students sit out and just, play Frisbee and stuff like that. And we said, if we get an extension cord and put it in the lawn, we don't need an auditorium. And he can speak from that extension cord. And that's what we did. And Malcolm came. It was the spring of '63. It was hot. He spoke for 2 hours in that hot sun. And I stopped him in the middle of his speech and said, we have enough extension cord, Mr. Malcolm X, to take that this microphone and put it under a tree so you can get some shade. And he looked at me for a long time. It made me feel uncomfortable. I thought maybe he was annoyed because I had interrupted his speech. And finally he said to me, thank you, sir. But the Honorable Elijah Muhammad teaches us that a Black man should never stand under the tree in the South. That summer, we lived in the same area. I was walking around and Malcolm saw me, asked me to come over to his car, and he wanted to know what the young people thought about his speech. And I said, wait a minute, I want to ask you, why did you take so long to answer my question about the moving the mic? Because I was, you made me feel really uncomfortable. And he laughed and he said, brother, he said, it was so hot, I started to disobey my leader and teacher. Second one, in this very auditorium, Sister Rosa Parks spoke in 1985 to a capacity crowd of students. And let me just tell you something about that humble, beautiful lady. When I first met her, I had to go to the airport. I had a limousine to pick her up because she was getting an honorary degree at the college in New Rochelle when my wife was the former dean. And let me give you a test. What's my name? Y'all know my name? Let me tell you. James Blake. Say James Blake. Say it like James Blake. I want you to remember this. James Blake. All right, so I said to Miss Parks, I said, once we got in the limousine, I said, tell me something that happened on that bus that nobody knows. And she started to speak, and I said, you're going too fast, Miss Parks. You got to take your time. This has got to be special, because I want to tell my grandchildren I got this from the mouth of Rosa Parks. And she started to speak again, and I interrupted her again. And she said, I said, well, Miss Parks, you're really going too fast. Take your time, take it. She said, well, and I interrupted again. She said, well, if you let me finish, I'll tell you something that you don't know. I said, what is that? She said the bus driver's name was James Blake. I could have fell out. I said, after I got my composure, I said, that James Blake put you off a bus and had you arrested. This James Blake, when you come to New York, will put you in a limousine. And we've done that. You give me a hand clap on that. So welcome, sit back, enjoy the program. My job right now is, look, a leader is one who inspires those who follow them. And we have a leader here at Borough Manhattan Community College. He's not been here 10 years or 20 years, but in the time that he's been here, he has put his actual leadership skills to work. And we all are benefiting from it. So it's my job to introduce to you and to bring to you the president of the Borough Manhattan Community College, Dr. Anthony Monroe. Give him a big hand. Come on, big hand. He's made this auditorium available to us and so many other things. Thank you so much, Dr.
Well, good evening, everyone. Oh, let's do that again. Good evening, everyone. It is such an honor and pleasure to see you all here at Borough of Manhattan Community College, affectionately known as BMCC. Many of you are probably aware that BMCC is part of the City University of New York. We happen to be one of the largest colleges within the 25-college system called CUNY. And we are by far the largest of the community colleges within CUNY and one of the largest colleges in the Northeast. And it is truly an honor and privilege to serve here at BMCC as the president in service to our phenomenal students. And you'll hear in a short while from our Student Government Association president, in collaboration with our faculty and our staff who are dedicated to their success. We are totally committed to ensuring that our students achieve their academic and their personal goals and objectives. We serve about 20,000 students each year who are pursuing an associate's degree, and about another 10,000 students who are in various workforce development, adult continuing education programs. BMCC is a jewel, it is a gem. It is an institution that allows our students to realize their greatest potential because we have a faculty and a staff that is singularly focused on their success. I call him Dr. James Blake, is one of the examples of the outstanding people that we have here in service of our students. We can talk about our students. They come from 150 plus different countries. They speak over 110 different languages. We are the United Nations here in this institution called BMCC. Our students have grit and determination. They work hard to ensure that they will achieve their goals and get a college education that will allow them to move up the socioeconomic ladder. We're proud to say that our motto is start here, go anywhere, because that is exactly what our students do. So on behalf of our students, our staff, and our faculty, welcome to Borough of Manhattan Community College. Welcome to BMCC. And we look forward to a phenomenal meeting on this evening. Again, welcome. Good seeing you all.
The next speaker will be a young lady who has shown such great promise for future leadership in any endeavor she goes into. Please put your hands together for the president of the student body, my beautiful, I call her President Marquez. Come on, come on. These are our students. This is what we're here for. Jennifer Marquez.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Borough of Manhattan Community College, one of the best CUNY colleges in New York City. This is a great place for young minority students to find themselves, learn, and become a leader. There are many resources for young students of color to be successful here. I'm actually a graduate of the New York City public school system. And before, yes, thank you. And before coming to BMCC, I couldn't have imagined being the president of the Student Government Association. This college changed my life. Particularly being a part of the SGA helped me find my voice as a freshman, encouraged and motivated me to be a part of my community and make a difference. Particularly for students just like me who are first generation students who had food insecurities or come from a dysfunctional family. So there's a place for them here at BMCC, and we welcome them to be a part of our family. So I hope you encourage your students, and if there's any students here, I just want you guys to be encouraged to come here to BMCC and know that the SGA is working hard to provide a safe space for all students to get what they need to start here and go anywhere. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Good evening. We can do better than that. Good evening. And good evening to all of the attendees who are streaming live or joining us virtually. Good evening to you. We would like to welcome you to BU's third annual Gathering of Black Educators. I am Latoya Garcia.
I'm Ashley Blakely.
And together tonight we'll be your hosts for this evening. At this time, we would like you to reflect on a quote as we prepare to dive deep into conversations about supporting and uplifting educators of color.
Barack Obama once said, "We are the ones we've been waiting for. We are the change that we seek." So with further ado, we will begin tonight with the committee reports from our BU members, starting with the Advocacy Committee.
Hi, good evening, everyone. How are you? Good evening. My name is Chantel Nubian, and I'm a STEM educator here across New York City Public Schools. And I'm very honored to be here with everybody to help communicate what the Advocacy Committee has been doing in regards to Black Edfluencers-United. The purpose of, and the illustrious,
Hi, my name is Cheryl Leverett. I am a parent coordinator. I have been a parent coordinator since 2003 in the wonderful D29 IS59Q.
Amazing. Now, the purpose of the Advocacy Committee is to amplify the vision and mission of Black Edfluencers United. We do this through the work of our two subcommittees, communications and strategic partnerships. Our communications team develops our internal and external systems of engagement with our strategic partnerships teams, which we build and maintain relationships with key with key stakeholders and organizations in the community who align with our values for our 7-point actionable agenda items. And now, the illustrious Lavette will let you know more about our 2 actionable items, which are
Hi, so this year we're working on action items 1 and 5. Ensure the inclusion of anti-bias workshops, anti-racism training, and culturally responsive sustaining education practices for all teachers as part of attaining a New York State teaching certification. And we want to look at and review data on past anti-bias training, determine whether or not that training has been effective, by polling our staff, our students, to see what has really worked. Is that effective? Do we need more? 5, integrate restorative practices for school safety, staff, and students as part of the daily culture of the school in order to build community and disrupt the school to prison pipeline. So we've begun to review data on suspension rates to see in what locations, be it district or in individual schools, that the rates are highest. We want to see where the help is needed, where we need to do more. And that's what advocacy is doing this year. Thank you.
selfie.
Next, we will hear from Karen Reed, from our membership committee.
Good evening, everyone. So I want to start with saying welcome to, as LaToya mentioned, the 3rd annual BU event. As I sit here in the audience tonight and think about the state of education, it's clear that we are still living in a time where education or educators are being censored and treated as if we are not the experts of this work. However, one of our goals for this gathering is to engage in tangible, professional, and social transformation. The BU community, we are serious about leading the charge of helping educators equip our children with tools and knowledge needed to transform their educational experiences. I ask you tonight, what will that work look like for you after leaving here? For those of you who are not members of our community, I encourage you to begin this work by joining us. When we exit this evening from this space, there'll be QR codes where you can sign up around the auditorium. And those of you who are members, I ask that you continue to be a part of our community, continue to challenge the system, to provide educational experiences anchored in justice, freedom, and true liberation for our children. I'm going to read a quote. I just started reading this book Tuesday or Wednesday. It's by Jamila Lyscott. And I ask that you just listen for a moment. Dear teachers, before you teach us to splinter our souls for a seat at the table, teach us to splinter our hands as carpenters of our own justice. How dare you encourage us with, or engorge us with, this feast of feeble freedoms while our appetite remains an unquenched black hole. So with that quote, I say to you, I ask again, what will the work look like for you after leaving here? Thank you.
And up next, we have the Policy Committee.
Good evening. My name is Tim Clark. I'm going to talk about what the Policy Committee has been up to this past year, and then Dwight Chase will talk about what we have on deck for this coming year. So we have partnered with the Black Ed Research Center at TC Columbia University, Albany, and EEAPC partners to contribute our talents, writings, and revisions to the Black Studies curriculum and New York City Public Schools Hidden Voices African Diaspora. With EEAPC partners, we created a crosswalk for teachers to find alignment with Hidden Voices African Diaspora, the Black Studies curriculum, Passport, New York City Scope and Sequence, and AP African American Studies. We are also in collaboration with the Westchester Alliance of Black Educators. The policy team reviewed and unpacked the Amistad legislation with state legislators and electeds. We were invited and joined the Amistad Commission. Our historic work with the Black Studies curriculum in New York City's public schools will provide lessons learned for implementing and scaling up this work throughout New York State.
Good evening. As Tim just mentioned, now we'll talk about our plans for this year. This year, as advocacy laid out, we plan to integrate restorative practices in our school buildings. The policy team will review and unpack outcomes and lessons learned from other states to determine impact and effectiveness when reporting out and making recommendations. We're going to dive into the historical context by looking at statistical trends in the US of suspensions and expulsions. We'll also continue with curriculum and educational approaches by gathering reflections of teachers, families, and various other stakeholders about how these exclusionary experiences have affected our students long-term. Also this year, we will be diving deeper into state licensure qualifications and push for improvement. Specifically, we plan on meeting with state and local leaders to advocate for the inclusion of the anti-bias workshops, anti-racism training, and culturally responsive sustaining education practices for all teachers as part of their attaining New York State teaching certification. Our goal is to make sure that CRSE is not just an added layer in schools, but an integrated part of the fabric of how we train and maintain teacher development and sustainability. Thank you.
At this time, we have the Capacity Committee. And Ashley and I are actually members of the Capacity Committee. We're here on behalf of the Capacity Team co-leads, Dr. Nairi Dawn Dixon and Ms. Anne Marie Malcolm. So we began this past year as a capacity team looking at our vision and mission. It was important for us to have a clear understanding of where we wanted to go and how we would get there. And so we engaged our team in a variety of protocols so that this was a collaborative vision and mission. And so through these protocols, all of the members of the capacity team were able to give their input, and we put that all together, and this is what was the results of that process. And so our vision is to empower Black educators through advancing educational equity for Black students. And our mission is to collaboratively and unapologetically advocate for and empower Black educators to directly impact the academic achievement of Black and Brown students through culturally responsive curriculum and support services. These are our capacity team co-leads. It's Ashley and I.
So through the mission and vision that we collaboratively developed, our co-leads, Dr. Nairi Dawn Dixon and Anne Marie Malcolm, we collaborated with the Division of School Leadership to inform educators of leadership opportunities within the Department of Education. Later, we had a virtual fireside chat with Shamir Stevens, to which we discussed the importance of recruiting male teachers of color and the impact it has on students of color. To continue, we looked internally within our BU members who all have produced phenomenal books and decided to provide them with a platform to have a book chat to share their inspirations and motivations for creating such inspirational work. Lastly, we ended our year with 3 leadership series to which we focused on establishing trust, building organizational relationships, and leading with a purpose, all of which has led us to this year's focus alignment.
So as we continue to build capacity of Black educators throughout the New York City Department of Education, New York City Public Schools, our 2023-2024 focus alignment will be as such. We want to ensure the inclusion of anti-bias workshops, anti-racism training, and culturally responsive sustaining education practices for all teachers as part of attaining a New York State teaching certification, and also integrate restorative practices for school safety, staff, and students as part of the daily culture of the school in order to build community and disrupt the school to prison pipeline.
So without further ado, we'll move on to the culture and community, which will be presented by Lakeisha Riggins. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Katora Hardy. I am the Culture and Community Committee Lead, and this is Lakeisha Riggins.
Good evening, everyone. I am an assistant principal in District 29 and a proud member of Culture and Community, and I am so blessed to be working under the leadership of this dynamic woman, Katora Hardy. She truly yes, give it up for her, come on. She truly exemplifies what it means to be committed and to walk in your purpose. Our mantra is our culture is our cure. So I'm asking, can you repeat after me? Our culture is our cure. One more time. Our culture is our cure. And this statement, our culture is our cure, suggests that a strong connection to one's cultural heritage can provide healing, support, and resilience. This idea implies that by embracing and preserving one's cultural identity, individuals and communities can find solutions to various challenges, both personal and as a community. Culture can be a source of strength, identity, and unity. It often includes traditions, values, rituals, and a sense of belonging that can be a source of comfort and support during many difficult times. And it can provide remedies for various challenges and issues. Embracing and celebrating one's culture can help people find meaning, purpose, and a sense of community. It can also be a way to pass down knowledge, wisdom, and coping mechanisms from one generation to the next. While the idea that our culture is our cure can be empowering and healing, it's important to recognize that culture is diverse and can mean different things to different people. What serves as a source of healing and strength in one cultural context may differ from another. Additionally, individuals and communities may face challenges in preserving and maintaining their cultural heritage, especially in the face of external pressures or challenges. In summary, our culture is our cure is a statement that emphasizes the importance of culture in providing knowledge, support, healing, and solutions to challenges. It highlights the value of cultural identity and heritage in promoting well-being and resilience. This is who we are as an extension of BU. We are the Culture and Community Committee. Our goal is to empower all of our communities. This involves fostering a sense of reliance, engagement, and collaboration. Culture and Community does this by hosting events such as Kwanzaa, Black History celebrations, and Juneteenth, just to name a few. If you have not been to any of these events, we encourage you to accept this as your invitation. Those of you that have know how dynamic and powerful they are. So when the call is made to join BU, make sure you join Culture and Community as well. Thank you.
Next, we'll hear from the Social Committee.
Good evening, everyone. As I look in the audience, I'm so excited to see so many familiar faces. If you've been to our mixers, I think I've seen you. I am Crystal Charlemagne, the proud chair of Black Edfluencers-United Social Committee. We like to think of ourselves as the fun committee, right? BU definitely appreciates the importance of balance and hard work and the dedication with moments like the mixers that we have, the events that we plan, and we hope to definitely see you there. Our vision is all about fostering a vibrant, engaging community for Black influencers like yourselves. All of those wonderful events and mixers you've been to was planned by the amazing committee. If you're here, Social Committee, can you stand up so we can give you a round of applause? Anyone? Thank you. It's pretty much through those events we aim to celebrate culture, offer networking opportunities, and building meaningful relationships. So I have my co-committee member, Paula. She'll tell you more about our purpose.
Good evening, everybody. Good evening and welcome. My name is Paula Thomas, and I am a new member to the BU family, and I am a member of, obviously, the Social Committee. So the purpose of our Social Committee is to strengthen the sense of community among members of Black Edfluencers-United by organizing social events and activities that promote unity, positivity, and cultural awareness. We aim to provide a space where members can network and build relationships and celebrate our Black culture and history. Our committee is dedicated to creating an inclusive and engaging environment that fosters personal growth, inspires positive change, and encourages members to be agents of change within their communities. I don't know how many people have received our flyer. This is our upcoming mixer. It's going to be, yes, a round of applause because our parties are a lot of fun. Raise your hand if you went to the party in April. Did anybody go to our mixer? I'm sorry, our mixer in April. How about our intern mixer in June? We give great events. So we have a brand new mixer coming up. It's Friday, October 27th. It's a little further out in Freeport, but it's a wonderful place, and we hope that you'll be there. Thank you. And it's Black-owned. It's a Black-owned restaurant. Thank you.
Up next, we'll hear from the Advocacy Committee. You did advocacy? I see what you slide? Okay. Sorry.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Kaya Royal. I am the lead chair of the Advocacy Committee for Black Edfluencers-United. If you look at our monitor, you'll notice that there's a QR code for you to scan, and I'll tell you a little bit about that. Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, fellow advocates for equity and justice in education. Tonight, we stand before you with a mission that goes beyond words and resonates deep within the corridors of our educational system. It is a mission that demands our attention, our commitment, our collective action. We gather here to shine a light on a pressing issue, one that has long been hidden in the shadows of our schools and institutions. The survey that encompasses the data displaying the hiring, firing, promotional, and tenure practices amongst Black educators in the Department of Education. In our pursuit of a fair and inclusive educational landscape, it is imperative that we do not overlook the experiences, struggles, and achievements of Black educators who have dedicated their lives to shaping the minds of our future leaders. These educators have labored tirelessly, often against systemic barriers, to provide quality education to all students. Yet their stories, their challenges, and their successes remain largely unspoken and undocumented. This survey, dear friends, is not just a collection of statistics and figures, it is a beacon of awareness, a call to action, and a testament to the importance of acknowledging the disparities that persist within our educational institutions. We call upon each and every one of you to participate in this survey, to lend your voice and your experiences to the cause of advancing equity in education. As we embark on this journey of discovery and advocacy, let us remember that knowledge is power. By shedding light on the hiring, firing, promotional, and tenure practices impacting Black educators, we pave the way for a more just and inclusive future, one where every educator, regardless of their background, can thrive and continue to inspire the minds of our youth. Join us in this vital endeavor as we navigate the uncharted waters of the educational equity, and together we shall pave the path toward a brighter, more equitable future for all. Now, what I've asked is that all of you take the time to scan this survey, which addresses actionable item agenda number 6, which we addressed last year, and that is to increase the hiring of Black teachers, support the development of Black faculty members, and improve leadership opportunities for Black educators. The Advocacy Committee has developed a survey that we plan on taking these findings to the Department of Education to implement change. Thank you again, and please take our survey.
So next, we will hear from our wonderful board member, George Patterson, our Senior Director of MBK.
That one. Thank you. Good evening. Sounded pretty good. I don't think I have to ask for it again. 10 years ago, my son graduated from Morehouse College. Fun fact, Shango and Dave's son also went to Morehouse College. President Obama did the commencement speech. For me, it's apropos that he did it. Who would know that I would go on to lead one of his signature programs, My Brother's Keeper? As we all know, there would be no MBK initiative in New York if it weren't for the Chancellor of the Board of Regents and BU lifetime member, Dr. Lester Young. Thank you. And MBK would not have the success that it's currently experiencing until Chancellor and co-founder of BU, David Banks, moved us into his office. So we have some of our MBK and MSK students. I think some of our fellows, or unless they're still in a meeting at Tweed, but definitely repping our chapter at Channelview High School. So MBK, MSK, Channelview chapter, please just throw a hand in the air so everyone can acknowledge you. And special shout out to our dads that are here. I saw a parent coordinator, Patrick. Is Patrick here? Where you at? Let's give Pat a round of applause. Patrick Freeman, Derek from Real Dads, Ron Hartridge. We started this dads movement under the leadership of Deputy Chancellor Kenita Lloyd. And we started it with the Dads Take Your Child to School Day. Now, my son's time in Morehouse was amazing, absolutely. Morehouse had something special, a mystique. I don't know if it was the rituals, the events, the ceremonies, the way it made you feel like you were part of something special. Since my son graduated, I felt that mystique in just a few places. And BU is one of those places. We're really a family, like real talk, right? We have love for each other. When Crystal Charlemagne became a principal, we were there the first day to support her and welcome her in with her community. When BU members throw their proverbial hat in the air, we're there with that metaphorical folding chair to make sure, you treat them right. Absolutely. Our members are world-class leaders. They really are. People like the ones you've heard from tonight, they're all doing this. This is just passion projects. Now, President Dr. Blake can really teach a masterclass on leadership the way he's led this organization, right? Let's give it up for Dr. Blake. But, hold on. Let's also give it up for Professor Blake, because I see where he gets it from. I believe it's no accident. Dave became Chancellor Banks. Michelle became president of the CSA Black Caucus and vice president of BU. Joanna became Chief Johnson. Crystal Bond became Superintendent Bonds. It's the BU mystique. And we have built in from the very beginning, love and trust. And as was alluded to, if you attended any of our mixes, you know we could turn up. So I'm going to end by saying this. As a BU executive board member, I want you to know you don't have to be out there on your own island. You could come get this BU love. You'll find out once you join, anything is possible. From becoming the chancellor, right, to creating the first ever Black Studies program, and even hooking up. Shout out to Superintendent Crystal Bonds and Changing Norms STEM Camp. So you could hook up with your fellow BU member and be invited to President Obama's house on Martha's Vineyard. Hold on. All right? That's what I'm talking about. Okay? Thank you very much.
Up next, we will hear from the VP of BU, Michelle Patterson. And she will talk to us about the Black Studies curriculum.
So am I gonna stay here with the picture? I love it. Some of my favorite people are in it. But, So I'm actually, first of all, thank you so much for being here, right? It's important, right? Representation matters. And so I would be remiss if I did not have some of my partners, of our partners in EEAP EAPC, Education Equity Action Plan Coalition, come forward. So I'm going to ask Adrian Straker to come forward from mighty Albany Association of Black Educators of New York, President-elect. I'm going to ask Cassandra Edwards, Special Assistant to the Director of Burke Black Ed Research Collective at TC, Teachers College, Columbia University. And I'm going to ask Chiwete Moore, Chief of Staff for DC Quintana Division of Teaching and Learning. These are some of our partners. Now, just to let you know, because I know how, word travels. You do wonderful things and they say, I noticed this person wasn't here and that person. I will have you know. Kimma V. Reed and Lakia Washington were supposed to be here today representing Eagle Academy Foundation, another partner. I was on the phone with them about 15 minutes ago. Also, Nina Simone was going to be here tonight. Her children got sick, representing United Way. So I want to put that out there because we are a unified coalition. And so that's really my message tonight, is about unity, okay? When this started, it was about 4 educators getting together and engaging in collegial conversation, support, and advocacy, right? And then they said, we have to make this bigger. We have to make this better. And so it started BU with the intention of networking, collegiality, advocacy, and support for educators, right? An affinity group, Black Edfluencers-United. And it did grow. And then the pandemic hit. And while some, to be honest, all of us were scared. I think the world was scared. But BU used technology. And I'm probably biased, but it is the truth. They got busy, we got busy working on how do we get a Black Studies curriculum. And George Patterson, who you just heard from, and he is my brother, but this is the truth. He wrote the white paper, and it was presented to City Council, and it was funded at $10 million a year for 3 years, okay? Dr. Shango Blake. I know Dr. Blake, listen, but it was Shango. It was your son. It was our Dr. Blake, right? He is the one who has been leading this charge, right? Putting people together, making alliances, doing the work to move it through, okay? And that is why we are here today, because of a coalition, because of a unified mission, and because of a passion about getting this work in front of students. This time, I'm going to ask Cassandra to come forward because she's really going to talk to us about the curriculum.
Good evening, everyone. On behalf of Dr. Sonia Douglas and Burke Black Education Research Center, we're honored to be in your presence, and thank you for inviting us. I'm going to just give a brief overview of who Burke is, because technically it's most of you, if not some of you, who have assisted in developing and creating the Black curriculum. So it's no one person, organization. I need to put that out there. So founded in 2017, Burke is a research center housed at Teachers College, Columbia University, focused on education research at the intersections of Black history, culture, politics, and leadership. We are a research facility. Postdoctoral scholars and graduate students and alumni Teachers College and other institutions devoted to enriching Black education through transdisciplinary research, cross-sector collaboration, and policy advocacy. Burke is providing expertise in regards to this project, providing expertise to the EAPC initiative in the areas of curriculum development, professional development, research and evaluation, and stakeholder and community engagement. We have now created a curriculum with segments of having piloted in District 5 and also District 29. It's a co-collaboration with parents, teachers, administrators, and students. So we are in the process of seeing that in action now. I urge and encourage all of you to visit the different schools to actually see it for yourself. It's self-explanatory, and I think Michelle and everyone else has done a good job with explaining the details. But the curriculum cannot be successful without all of you. It cannot be successful without the support of the parents, teachers, administrators, and community members. So I encourage you to inquire more and become a part of the solution to implementing the Black Studies curriculum. Thank you.
Now I'm going to ask Adrienne Straker from Albany to come forward. Her scope of work is really stakeholder engagement along with BU.
Thank you, Michelle, and thank you to my colleague Cassandra from the Black Education Research Center at Teachers College, Columbia. As Michelle said, I'm Adrienne Straker, president of the Association of Black Educators of New York, Incorporated. I'm here with my colleague, the president-elect, Dr. Sheila Bobo, if she could just give a wave. And we are a collaborating organization in the core team of the EEAPC, as you well know, the Education Equity Action Plan Coalition, which is responsible for producing the Black Studies curriculum. Black Studies as the study of the world. That's literally the whole title of the Black Studies curriculum. Albany, along with BU, is responsible for stakeholder engagement. So we're the leads. And what does that mean for you? It means that collectively we network, plan, and act on behalf of teachers, students, parents, community leaders, and public servants like yourselves towards the educational and professional success of this curriculum. We share information about implementing the Black Studies curriculum. We raise awareness of the coalition's progress and impact. The Education Equity Action Plan over the past 2 years has held virtual and in-person events, and we hope most of you have been to some of them. How about we get a raising of the hands? How many of you have been to some of our events, know of our events? I've seen you, so don't hide in the shadows. Don't hide in the shadows. I know you've been out there. We've held the Black Studies Summit. We've held the Barbershop Series. We've held the Laundromat Series. We've held Read Aloud Series at some of your schools, so I know you've been there. We've had notable authors. We've had historic Black figures. And thank you to Dr. Hazel Dukes that's been out there with us on the road. And Dr. Davenport is here. We started out, where's Dr. Davenport? We started out District 5 in his school almost 2 years ago. So thank you very much for being out there with us in the beginning. Yeah, a round of applause. And we've been up at the New York State Black and Puerto Rican Caucus. I see some of our elected officials, some of our state leaders here. Thank you very much for hosting us and sharing some time with us upstate so we could talk about our work as well. And then, of course, there was the phenomenal Black Studies Bookmobile. How many of you saw us with that bookmobile this summer? Yes. We tried to do a 5-borough tour, but that storm kept us from Staten Island. So who's here from Staten Island? We still owe you Staten Island. Sorry, Staten Island, we will get to Staten Island. So we did the bookmobile. The bookmobile was an actual real life snippet of the Black Studies curriculum. We had someone who did a live tour of what an actual lesson would be like. So we were very excited about that. There's more to come. We don't have the QR code up there, but we have a website, eeapccoalition.org, so check us out. Please look for more events and more opportunities to engage with us. Thank you again.
And now we're going to have Huete Moore come from New York City Public Schools, DC Quintana Division of Teaching and Learning.
Thank you. Well, I know our time is running out, so I'm going to be brief. I just want to say that when Chancellor Banks and I first met, one of the things that he told me was that the Black Studies curriculum, the launch, the implementation, but making sure that it got in front of every single student in our system was one of his biggest priorities. And so with that, it has been really important for New York City Public Schools to be in partnership with EAPC because our history is expansive and it matters. And it is incredibly important that every single student have the opportunity to have access to this. And so I'm really excited because in this collaboration between New York City Public Schools and EAPC, we've been able to develop a crosswalk between the work that we've been doing in social studies, the Black Studies curriculum, our future global Africa diaspora work. And we're really excited that we've been able to figure out what does it mean to create a breadth and body of curricular resources and curriculum that can be seamlessly implemented into our system. So I'm gonna leave it there. I'm very excited about the future of this work. And I just wanna thank again, Superintendent Davenport and Superintendent Crystal Bonds for being fearless leaders in the pilot of this work. Thank you.
And so at this time, I also want to lift up Dr. David Banks, our Chancellor, who has always been a mentor and a champion for this work prior to being the Chancellor. And then after becoming the Chancellor, he remained true. He remained loyal. This work is moving forward, as well as my former superintendent and our Chancellor of Regents, Dr. Young, who encourages and guides us as we move forward. So I've shown you all the members, right? And remember, there's also Eagle Academy Foundation, United Way, Black and Latino Asian Caucus of City Council. So this coalition is not small, right? But we have just a sampling. At this time, I'm gonna ask, and you're in the first 3 rows, everybody who had something to do, and there are more than that, with writing this curriculum, I want BU to stand up for a minute. Stand up. These are your writers. The policy team, stand up. The Black Studies think tank, stand up. Our student advisors, stand up. This is who we've been working with behind the scenes. These are the people, and many, many more. Thank you so much. Yeah, just pull up the last page. She's pulling up the last page of with a QR code. We're having a special event at the Paley Center on October 28th. It's a professional learning opportunity. It's citywide, and it is in collaboration with New York City Public Schools, AP African American Studies, the Black Studies curriculum, our curriculum, and Global African Diaspora. So I just wanted you to be able to see, I don't know if it'll work, the QR code so you can scan it, register, attend. It is phenomenal. And they have so many resources for you as educators and teachers to support learning and engagement.
George Patterson.
Crystal Bonds.
Janelle Rock.
Dr. Johnson.
Bernard Gassaway.
David Banks.
My name is Dr. Sandy P. Johnson.
My name is Dr. Shungo Blake.
Dion Grayman.
I think about the founding members of BU, all that time that we spent going up to Harlem to meet weekly. So when I think about those founding members and that sacrifice, I knew that something special would come out of it.
BU, we have a community and we lift each other, we support each other.
Truly being part of a community that is collaborative, that is anchored in truth, justice.
BU is more than just the organization. BU is truly a community. As a Black educator, I feel affirmed.
It aligns with my values, it aligns with my morals, and what I do for a living with regarding children and Black students, with an emphasis on Black students, and just seeing them achieve.
We are able to support each other professionally. We do professional development. We also engage in community work. We engage and work with each other to support as far as like academic excellence.
It means that I take a new step every day, but I do that with the collective team that cheers you on, journeys with you.
And there's a camaraderie. There is a way of being with each other that doesn't exist in other spaces.
Means of them actively engaging in this important work as opposed to complaining about all the things that are wrong with education. From the minute I learned about the organization and their goals, I knew this is a group I needed to be involved with.
That's the beautiful thing about a vision. You don't own it solely. It is a vision is something for people to take, develop, grow, and evolve. And with this new team, these new members of BU who have been putting in that work and bringing even newer members, we're just excited about where we're going.
My name is Michelle Beth Patterson.
My name is Anne Marie Malcolm.
My name is Crystal Charlemagne.
My name is Karen Reed.
Kyle Roy.
Dr. Nairi Dawn Dixon.
My name is Katora Hardy.
My name is Tim Clark.
My name is Erica Addy.
My role in Black Edfluencers-United, I am the vice president of the organization. I also help to lead the policy team, and I am the point for the Black Studies curriculum, a historic curriculum that we are launching this year.
My role with BU is chair of the social committee.
I am in charge of the membership committee.
I have served as the co-lead of capacity.
My role in BU is that I am currently the chairman of the advocacy committee.
I am currently the lead of the Culture and Community Committee.
I am on the core leadership team, the policy committee, and the tech team.
I am a member of the communications team.
When you became president and it was unanimous, did that surprise you?
Well, it wasn't unanimous.
Oh, my bad. Oh, I didn't know.
But when I became president, it was a validation of my work and people's belief in my ability to get the job done. And I can only hope that I've justified my position as president so that when people look at me, they say, you know what? He was the right person at the right time.
I'm so excited. Not only is Sharrick Charlton of the Queen's Code our BU business winner, she is invited to our VIP pitch event where she will be able to show off her wonderful business to all of our DOE principals and superintendents that attend our event on Thursday.
Why do I do this equity work? If you look at the data, the outcomes for Black students and Black adults, Black people are disparate. And we know that it's because of institutionalized racism and bias that exists implicitly within all of us.
Equity is important because if all of our students, especially Black students, they need to have the same access that all students have so that they can succeed in life.
as we look into these inequities to really focus on identifying what they are and understanding the historical context behind them as well, so that we understand how we got here and make sure that we don't return.
I looked in the mirror and I said, well, what are you going to do to be part of the solution as opposed to tweet about it or argue about it or have those barbershop conversations? I'm going to do what I can to change that, to put Black people in a better position.
BU is in the vanguard position when it comes to development of the Black Studies curriculum. And, you know, we feel proud of that work. It's been a labor of love. It's been sacrifice, blood, sweat, and tears. But we're at the point of celebration. It's so critically important that to know that our children will have the benefit that many of us never had, to be able to go into a social studies class and learn about the contributions of Black people to civilization, to the world, to America, just like we learn about other ethnic groups and what they've contributed. Our children now be validated through their experience based on the work that our organization has been involved in.
The children in District 29 will be piloting this curriculum. I was excited and ready to take the torch and lead the teachers, the school leaders in the process of implementing information that when I myself was a student here, no one taught me about my history.
A lot of our students have not received the adequate education that they deserve. We've seen that our parents within the community have not been supported.
I engage in this equity work because I firmly believe that education is the cornerstone of empowerment and meaningful social change.
The way I feel in terms of those who have sacrificed and worked to the development of BU and now watching them grow in their personal careers, I think that's only right. Too long, people have been elevated based upon who they know, not based upon their work ethic, not based upon their sacrifice. When David Banks, one of the founding members of BU, first came into this work, he was CEO of Eagle Academy Foundation. When Dr. Crystal Barnes first started, she was a principal. Now she's superintendent of an entire school district. Crystal Charlemagne came into our organization as an assistant principal, and now she's principal.
So it's Latoya Garcia, principal of PS 176, the Cambria Heights School, and Ashley Blakely are two dynamic, innovative, young minds. They have been a tremendous support to me as a co-lead, filling in, building capacity by ensuring that they are put forward.
Did I think they would take it this far? I knew they would take it this far. And P.S., this isn't this far. We haven't gotten there yet.
The reason why I believe and knew that BU would take it this far is the dynamic leaders that we have within the organization.
Of course, I believe that BU would go this far and beyond. I don't think BU has gone as far as it will go.
And you have the audacity to tamper with the minds of the young, to influence their sense of who they are, how they got to be who they are, what they can make out of who they are, and what the future holds in their hand that they can control and make not just a difference, but a positive difference.
And now, the next individual who will be coming up needs no introduction. He is the reason why we are all here today gathered.
So if we can get a loud round of applause for our BU president, Dr. Shango Blake.
Please. No. while I appreciate you standing for me, don't stand for me. Let's stand for those who gave us the legacy to continue to work and do the work that we do. So I'm going to ask everyone to stand for Dr. Adelaide Sanford, the last voice that you just heard. Let's give her a standing ovation. I want to say, on behalf of BU, I want to thank Dr. Monroe. Thank you, Dr. Monroe. We've been at this for 3 years. I want to thank his administration, his faculty, his staff, and the students of BMCC, Borough Manhattan Community College, for always giving us a home and allowing us a place to have a gathering of Black educators. So thank you, Dr. Monroe. We truly appreciate that. I got to give a special shout out to my father, Professor James Blake. Always working behind the scenes to make sure that things go well. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I was just going to tell him this story. I actually was going to tell him a story about how I sat you down and made you the leader that you are today, but that's another time. We also would like to thank Principal Dana Rappaport Shakur and the team over at PS 234, the independent school, because after this event, we were smart. We got a reception for you. There's food there, so we can eat, talk, be merry, and network. And so we want to thank them for opening up their school and allowing that to happen. Before I say anything else, how many of you like those shirts that you saw, those BU shirts? Y'all like those? Would y'all like a shirt? Join BU. And we have a shirt for you. A little bit of history. When you walked up to this school today, you were walking up the ramp. Did you know that that ramp is called Frederick Douglass Ramp? Did you know that when he first stepped foot in New York City, it was in this area? Did you know that Africans occupied downtown Manhattan, the financial district? Did you know that Abyssinia Church, the first Abyssinia Church before moving uptown, was right here downtown? This is why Black Studies matters. And as they say, you shall know the truth and the truth shall set you. There you go. So I want to just do a quick mic check to see who's in the house. Is Abney in the house? Make some noise. Is the Black Caucus of the Council of Supervisors and Administrators, are you in the building? Is OSG in the building? I know y'all are here. Is Parents Supporting Parents in the building? And if they're not, they're definitely watching on live stream. We don't do this without our parents. Is Westchester Alliance of Black School Educators? Want to shout them out. WAPSI, Eagle Academy Foundation, Berg, United Way, our Black elected officials. And y'all know I'm the nation's hip hop principal, right? If y'all didn't know, ask somebody. I got bars. We have somebody from Love and Hip Hop here. Ooh, we don't care about Dr. Blake anymore. No, Love and Hip Hop. Meta Montana is her name, but guess what? She is Dr. Meta Montana, and she's interested in education. So we want to welcome her here today. So we're going to get right to the business. We have two very dynamic people that we're going to have a fireside chat with. And I think it's so critically important because these two individuals are probably two of the most important people in the state of New York as it relates to education, you know? And so to have them on the stage together, to have a conversation and an exchange is an honor. These are busy men, but they make time for what's important. And they know that education of Black children is critically important. So with that being said, I'd like to invite to the stage our Chancellor, Chancellor David Banks, Dr. David Banks. Just take the seat on the side. And our New York State Chancellor of New York State Board of Regents, Chancellor of the Board of Regents, Dr. Lester Young, Jr. Shout out to my boy, Anel Austin. I see you, brother. It would be an understatement for me to say that I was nervous in this moment, because we got two guys here who have lived their life championing equity in education. And before we get into like some of the nit and grit in terms of their policies and procedures, I was thinking about both of you, and you don't arrive to your position by accident. There is work that is put in, and as an outgrowth of that work, there is elevation, and then with that elevation comes a great responsibility and even a burden. I think about you, Dr. Young. Everyone knows about your work here in New York City and in the borough of Brooklyn as a superintendent. They know your work around My Brother's Keeper. Some may not know the work that you do in higher ed, the work that you do around speaking to schools around the country about what is in the best interest of Black children. Dr. Banks, Chancellor Banks, you know, some know you as Chancellor. They don't know about your history though, how you came into the school system as a safety agent at first, and then moved through the ranks and became the founding principal of law and government, and then principal of the Eagle Academy for young men of color in the Bronx, and then ultimately head of the Eagle Academy Foundation. So the question I have for you is, there's a lot of times educators, specifically Black educators, feel beat down. They feel like their voices don't matter, that they're not valued. And there's even stats that talk about a leaving of many systems in this country. What do we need to do, based upon your experience, to retain the best and brightest minds when it relates to educating Black children? And feel free to jump in.
Sure. The first thing I think that is critically important is that we've got to get the problem right. And so I hear this all the time. They say, well, we can't find Black teachers, we can't find Black administrators. And so we approach it as if it's a recruitment problem. And here's what I'll tell you, it is not a recruitment problem. So I think the first thing is we have to understand that the job of an educator is more important than just asking people, do you want to be a teacher? Or do you want to be a principal? I can go out here on the corner and say, how many of you want to be a teacher? And a whole lot of hands will go up. And they will believe that they can do this job. And so the first thing is that it is, in my estimation, a problem of preparation. And I think we've got to do a better job of ensuring that our young people that are in high school today aspire to want to be teachers, to want to be educators. You know, I talk to high school students all the time and they say things to me like, well, why would I want to be that the way they treated me? And so we have to think through how we can ensure that we strengthen the pipeline, but more importantly, how do we engage our higher education institutions that house these teacher preparation programs and leader preparation programs to ensure that they are exiting the product that we need.
You know, it's interesting, and I like Chancellor Banks to kind of expound on this. I had a conversation with you earlier this week, and I was saying sometimes when I go into schools, if you close your eyes, and I'm listening to Black educators, if you close your eyes, you would think that you're listening to educators outside of our community. I hear language like these kids rather than our children. And so building on what Dr. Leslie Young is talking about in terms of really sounds like mindset and preparation, what do you think is the problem with how educators in general, and specifically Black educators, are being trained to engage our children?
Well, I want to be careful not to cast aspersions on Black educators, because if we're not careful, you know, we'll use that frame as though that's how everybody shows up. And that's not how everybody shows up. That's not how the folks in this room show up, right? So I would almost want to reframe the question also, right? Because I think for too long, we have in fact seen that the question gets framed through a negative paradigm. We have some parents who have challenged, and the system will define our parents as though, well, you know, you got parents that are on drugs, daddy's not around, nobody seems to care, as though that's what all of our parents represent. And that is not the case. I choose to accent the positive, to talk about those who are showing up in the way that they need to, and the way that they know that really does work best. And the reason I'm saying that we have to do that is because I use this example. I was talking to a group of teachers who had Tweed today, and I said, you know how you be in the class when you were a teacher, and you get little Eric acting up in the class, and you're trying to get through the lesson. The first thing you do, what do? You write Eric's name on the board.
Eric?
Eric. Maybe it was Shango. And he would continue to act up. And every time he acted up even more, what did a lot of teachers do? They put another check next to his name. By the time the day was done, there was Eric/Shango with 20 checks next to their name. Why? Because the negative behavior got the affirmation. Because what they were looking for really was attention, and you gave it to them. And meanwhile, the vast majority of the kids in that class who did everything that you asked them to do, they showed up in all the right ways. They don't get any attention. We have to change the narrative. Most Black educators that I know are not burnt out. Most Black educators that I know show up every day for all the right reasons. And sure, are there some who are operating from a different paradigm? Absolutely. But they are not the majority. And if we want to even change their behavior, you have to lift up, shed light on, and celebrate the ones that are doing it the right way. That's why BU matters, because BU becomes a vehicle for us to lift up and to celebrate what's right in our culture. When I see the Queen Mother, Adelaide Sanford, and I know we are all here because of her spirit and her work. Dr. Young is a direct descendant, right? Like learned at the foot of the master and was inspired to the point that he knew his responsibility was not just to be good himself, but to spread that. And nobody has done that better in terms of spreading that message and that spirit and being there for people. And I've just done what I could in terms of trying to be a part of that overall lineage. I can't tell you how good it makes me feel to be here, to see the committee reports. I'm like, y'all got committees now? When we started, it was 4 of us. Shango, we were the committee. And then we expanded out and there were about 10 of us.
That's right.
But to see how BU is growing and expanding is critically important. Stokely Carmichael, Kwame Ture said, if you actually want to change behavior, you have to be a part of an organization.
Yes, he did.
Otherwise, you're just somebody sitting around on the sidelines telling us what you think. But if you are part of an organization, and an organization like BU, an organization like Albany and others, that's when your voice really gets counted in a way that is meaningful. And that's how you lift and can change behavior, and you can get more people to be a part of it, and you can lift them, you can celebrate them. That's what I'm all about. I want to accent the positive.
Thank you, thank you. As we accent the positive, you know, there are real challenges that are happening within our school system. You've highlighted at your State of Our School address. You talked about literacy rates. You came up with a bold initiative, NYC Reads, looking at bright starts, bold futures. How does that play into lifting up and reaching our most vulnerable children, specifically students of color?
Oh, let me tell you something. That's what this is all about for me. When I became chancellor, I had a wide range of things that I knew that I wanted to kind of focus on, and I was prepared. I did not have reading and literacy as like the top priority. I knew it was important, but it wasn't my ultimate like aha. It has become the aha for me. And I'll tell you why. When you look at the data and you recognize that 64% of Black kids in New York City fundamentally don't read, have not been properly taught how to read. 63% of Latino kids. To me, that we should be screaming from the mountaintops about that. And there were very few people, if any, who were even talking about it to me when I became chancellor. People were talking to me about various programs. Make sure you support community schools. Make sure you support art and music. It's really important. Don't cut the budget for this, that, or the other. And even smaller programs that are really important to some elected official or some community leader. I can't recall anybody really telling me literacy and the fact that our kids don't read should be your number one priority. Frederick Douglass said, once you learn to read, you will forever be free. Right? So watch this. Because I don't say any of this for applause. I say this for impact. What good is it to have a Black Studies curriculum if the kids can't read it? Right? All of these things that we're trying to put in place will not have the level of impact that they're supposed to have if these young people are not confident, strong readers at the earliest ages. So for me, it has become the ultimate like, aha, now I get it. I see what the gateway is. And then as I started to research this thing and figure this out, like, why weren't they reading in the first place? I was on the Breakfast Club yesterday with Charlemagne and DJ Envy. And I talked about the fact that it didn't air yet. I think it's going to air maybe on Monday. So y'all listen out for it.
A little hip-hop chancellor here, huh?
Yeah. Just a little something.
Okay.
But it was interesting because as I talked about that, Charlemagne said, well, what were they doing all this time? Like, why do you send kids to school in the first place if they're not even going to learn how to read? And I realized that the die was cast very early on. And that's part of the reason we did a throwdown on Teachers College and on Lucy Calkins and that whole balanced literacy approach. It has not worked. You might be able to point to a school or a classroom where you may have gotten some decent results. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the masses of our kids. And my dad would reflect, on when he was growing up. And he said, we might not have had all the opportunities, and we grew up in some poor neighborhoods, But the one thing the New York City public schools did, they taught us how to read. I mean, that was almost like a given. And we got away even from that. The new president of Columbia University, first woman to lead the institution, came on board. Lloyd Williams up in Harlem hosted a breakfast. I was invited, and everybody had their say. And what I said to her was, congratulations, welcome. We're wishing you all the best. I just want you to know, as the new president, Columbia University and Teachers College bears the greatest responsibility for why this nation has gone off the side of the mountain in terms of literacy. Like the dance of the lemmings, people just followed because we assumed that you all knew what you were doing and you did not. And you have a responsibility as the new president coming in to fix this. Within 30 days, Lucy Calkins was removed from her position. Her entire body of work was bid adieu. And I think that is the beginning of why this is so important. We have ruined the lives of countless numbers of young people. And I believe very deep, there's nothing more important that I'm doing, and this administration is going to represent, than ensuring that our kids can read on grade level by 3rd grade. Because once they get that, the possibilities open up to them for everything else that we want to try and do.
Dr. Young, you spent a lot of time really championing on the state, the Amistad Commission. Matter of fact, when BU first joined with other organizations like ABNY, we tried to go to the state to impact, create change, get a Black Studies curriculum. And you were the one who, matter of fact, myself and George, you were the one who told us you get the city's lower hanging fruit and you could get this done in the city like almost overnight because of some of the things that are happening in terms of communities in the state that resist Black Studies. Now we know that this is happening all over the country and in many parts of New York where there's a resistance to a Black Studies curriculum. What do we need to do as Black educators to raise our voice on the state level? And what should be the strategy and approach that we use to pushing the idea of CRSE, Black Studies curriculum, et cetera?
So the first thing is you have to recognize the power that you have. And I've said this to you before. I've been on the Board of Regents now since 2008. We meet every month for 2 days. And since I've been on the board, just about every ethnic group has appeared, has voiced their concerns, has made demands, except one group. And this is an appeal. You now have a chancellor of the Board of Regents, and we need to hear from you. Understand, we hear from everyone, but we have not heard from anyone representing young people of African descent. So I think the first thing is you have to understand the power that you have. The second thing that is we have to understand that the core mission of our enterprise is learning. And somehow we've lost our way. And what do I mean by that? Chancellor Banks just talked about the proficiency rate, reading proficiency rates in New York City. So I will tell you this, that this problem that we're trying to deal with in New York City is a problem that we're trying to deal with all over the state. There is a school district where the vast majority of students are Black, one of the big 5 school districts where 80% of the children in that district are not proficient. Now, when I say that, that ought to make everyone angry. And so part of what we have to do is get back to who we are and understand the power and responsibility that we have to call this out. The other challenge that we have, talking about statewide, you know, we have some laws in New York State And one of the reasons why I said to you that if you wanted a Black Studies curriculum, you should just do it. Don't wait for the state. Because honestly, there's a law on the books, an education law that says that in New York State, we can't mandate anything, that the purview of curriculum and those types of decisions are left up to the local school board. We've got 733 school districts in New York State, right? 732 are governed by school boards. So right now, if you wanted to impact the state, you would actually have to lobby both houses of the legislature to change the law. And so what I would say to you is this, that your efforts in New York City are best spent getting this done so you can hold this up as the model. Because understand, there are places who are looking at what you're doing in New York City right now. And so people are actually holding their breath and saying, well, if you can get it done here, we can get it done anywhere.
That's right.
And so for me, you should recognize that you are the beacon. That's right. The other point that I would make is that we've got to be very reflective or self-reflective about the system. The system that we're in has really been a system of maintenance. And you know, regardless of what school you worked in, yes, there may be a couple of schools that did well. When I worked at CS21 with Mrs. Sanford, I'll never forget this. I left to go, I received a promotion and I left. And within 1 week, I came back. I said, Mrs. Sanford, I thought all the schools were like 21. What is this? But she, you know, she admonished me to say, no, they aren't, but you have a responsibility. And so what I would say to everyone here is that we have a responsibility to move this system under the leadership of Chancellor Banks, to move it from a system of maintenance to a system that says there's hope for every young person in New York City. See, that's the other point. The final point that I say almost every day is, you know, New York has some of the best schools on the planet. The problem is they're not available to everyone. And what I struggle with every day is that place matters. See, it's clear to me that opportunity, hope, performance, equity, all of these things in New York are based on zip code, how much money your parents make, on and on and on. And that's the problem. And so that's why when I say to you, we need to hear from you, it's important that we have your voice. We pass a culturally responsive framework. It's been on our website for the last 4 or 5 years. And here's what happened. You can't imagine how many times we get attacked by certain places, and they will say, well, why do we need this? Why is this important? You know, I will tell you, this is the only, I won't say horror story, but the only story I'll say tonight is that I was meeting with a group of superintendents, and one of them said to me, he said, look, you know, I understand all this diversity, equity, and inclusion and cultural responsiveness, but you need to understand something. I said, what? And you know, the way he said it, I said, do I have to flex or what? You know, and he said to me, but no, he said, Dr. Young, you have to understand, I live in a community where they use the Confederate flag for curtains. See, that's what's going on in New York. Now, the only reason why you don't hear about it in New York City, right? See, we got to be careful here. See, we think that because we're here, that the stories you hear about in Texas and Florida aren't here. Understand, they are here. It is right here. I mean, you can go right here in Long Island. You can go to Smithtown. It's here. And so when we're silent, right, when we're silent, that actually fans the fires for others because they think we're in a coma. And so it is important that we, as Dr. Blizz, as the late DMX says, they got to figure out who we be.
All right. I gotta give him props for knowing my name, Dr. Blizz. I didn't know you knew that. But you know, David, I felt like you wanted to jump in, like you were biting at the bit on this conversation.
Yeah.
In terms of, and I want to reframe it as you say. So what is Dr. Young is talking about our responsibility, right? And it's citywide and statewide, and we hope tonight to kind of connect the dots between city, state, and how we can get involved and where we need to apply pressure. So I want to say this to all of us. You know, this man got a hard job. You understand? Like, it's really, you know, day in, day out, championing the cause of children. And you know how it is. You're in a position of leadership to all my principals and soups. You know you're going to be criticized for just about everything. But one of the things when we talked about BU, we talked about having people in position, like yourself, but also having an army of folks that would be willing to raise their voices publicly so that, as Dr. Young says, the narrative is not controlled by people who don't have our children's best interests at heart. Can you just tell us about your experience and what do we do in this moment? What is our responsibility as Black educators to make sure that this agenda that we should all be collectively sharing is successful?
Yeah, well, a couple of things. I would tell you that particularly for BU, right? Because just start, first of all, from where you are, right? So a couple other committees that BU needs. BU needs a very strong comms committee, right? That is focused on narrative, how you develop narrative, how you promote the narrative, how you show up. You need to have some folks from a committee whose sole job is to show up in Albany at those meetings that Dr. Young just pointed out. Because I remember Dr. Young making that point years ago at other gatherings that we would have with him. And I still don't know that it changed. And it won't change unless we are affirmative in putting together a group of folks whose job is to show up and be in that room and make sure that their presence is heard. The Eagle Academy got started right here in New York City because we had a group of brothers who showed up in the room in suits and ties. And when we went and met with Hillary Clinton, who was our senator at the time, and she made a comment along the lines of, man, it just 10 brothers showed up in the room in suits and ties. It felt like 100 people came in the room. You could feel it, like they filled the whole room. Because what she saw was brothers focus with purpose. You can change the dynamic of any room if you show up like that. It's not enough to be here at BMCC, and then next month, Dr. Young is up there again by himself. Like you have to be intentional around how you make stuff change. It doesn't change just because you showed up in an auditorium and you had a nice conversation and somebody says something, interesting and we all, finger pop or clap. That's just feel good stuff. I did not take this position for feel good. And I will tell you something also, Shango, this is not the hardest job that I've ever had. Leading the work of Eagle Academy was significantly harder for me than being the chancellor. I did not have access to the amount of resources and supports that I have here. I spent every day, all day, trying to raise money, trying to get people to believe that Black young men, it's even possible for them to achieve. Having meetings with folks downtown and you go in and you give it your best shot, you lay out all the data and you lay out all the stories. And they were like, that's really interesting. Let's continue the conversation. What we got to continue the conversation for? I just laid it out and told you, right? And you realize that the power dynamic of fundraising is not about even how powerful your story is. It's about the people who you're meeting with and what their value system really is, right? So, but again, that's all nice. Even that doesn't move the needle. You now have a mayor in place. You got a speaker in Albany. You got a chancellor in place, you got a speaker in the city council, you got all the people in all of the places. And you also have a short window to make it happen. Because the reality is, I've told folks, is that the percentage of Black kids who even go to our schools is only 24% and dropping every day in New York City. People are surprised. Black audiences are very surprised when I ask them, I say, what percentage do you think of the kids that we have? They 50, 60%? I said, really? What percentage do you think are Latino kids? Then they start to go, whoa, wait a minute. I know there's a lot more Latino kids that are coming in, so it can't be. And so they start, what are the numbers? 41% of the kids in New York City public schools are of Latino descent and growing every day. Black is 24 and dropping every day. White is 15 and dropping every day. Asian is 17 and growing every day. The projections that the next 10 years, there will be more Asian students in New York City public schools than Black students. Who would have thought that from where we come from? And I'm not saying there's anything right or wrong with it. I'm just saying that's the demographics of the changing demographic of New York City. So you need to recognize that if your agenda as BU is about specifically Black children, you better be moving very quickly. And so while I do appreciate the social committee, that's important because we need to enjoy each other and draw strength from each other. You better put together a comms committee that is focusing on agenda that gets you into the rooms where the folks who have power are making decisions every single day. You need a political action committee that is completely focused on that, right? The other stuff is nice, but if you're not driving in that space, we're having a good time. We play around on the margins. We even get a Black Studies curriculum up and running. There's so much more that we could accomplish. And I think if you don't leave here with anything today, please hear what Dr. Young just said. The power to completely change the system rests with everybody that's in this room. You are the answers that we've been waiting for. But you gotta stay united. Many of you that are in this room are not members of BU. You need to be a member. It does.
Say that again.
The system does not change because you as a one-off in your own place with your own opinions. It only respects organization. There's no Superman that's coming to save the day for anybody. But an organization of like-minded people who are joined together and linking arms, that's how you affect change. That's what our ancestors have been waiting for us to do. Link arms in a very strong way, have a very strategic agenda. BU has at least a 10-point agenda. We should be effectuating that agenda every single day. And you have access to all the people. You have access to the mayor. You got access to Adrian Adams, the Speaker of the City Council. That's how we got the BU. We got $10 million to create that Black Studies agenda. That doesn't just happen. That happens because organization. And they saw several groups of us together. And they said, whoa, we got to respond. We have to respect that. And we have to respond to that. You can get much more than that if you were really organized at another level. Last thing I'll say is this. We have to show up, each one of us, excellent. It's not enough just to be Black folks. You got a whole lot of us that don't know much about our history either, right? And a lot of us, far too many of us, are what I call solidly mediocre. And that's not okay. Because you can't demand excellence if you don't represent that yourself, right? So again, as I said, I don't do it for the applause, but the way you can lift your game, become better, join BU, right? Because BU has an inside and outside strategy. We have to send a message to those, the powers that be, but also internally. We have to lift each other up. How do we get better? You have some of the best educators in New York City are in this organization. We need to make sure we get even more. And we have to make sure that we are sharing practice so that we get better. That's what we built BU on.
That's right.
And we have to make sure that that is happening.
I want to close with this question and then give an opportunity for a few questions from the audience. And George is collecting those questions.
He is now.
You gotta let me do my cue, right? Like I was like, yeah, put my boy on the spot. Both of you have been engaged in the work of bringing light to the stories, the values, the plight, and the importance of young men of color. You know, obviously with the Eagle Academy Foundation for Young Men of Color, your MBK work, Dr. Young, and now even creating safe corridors through programs like Pivot and what have you to really address some issues within our community. How do we go about dealing with some of our young men who just don't seem to be engaged with school, who don't seem like school's a place for them, and are, you know, who lose interest? From your experience, Dr. Young, what is the importance and the relevance of programs like MBK, and how impactful are they in changing the narrative?
So, My Brother's Keeper, to be clear, was, as everyone knows, was the original vision of President Barack Obama. And it's very interesting. When he issued the challenge, I think it was 2 years after he issued it, I was asked the question at a meeting. Someone said to me, well, why is it that the city with the largest number of Black males didn't answer the call? And the answer was the current administration in New York City. And so then the same person said, but why aren't other districts in New York City involved? And so we got the idea that we would organize a strategy in New York State, and we would specifically place it in the school system. And some people, and I don't know if everyone knows this, but there are 350 MBK communities nationally. New York is the only MBK community, the state of New York, where it rests with education. In other places, it's social services, it's the health department, it's City Hall. We felt the reason why it needed to be situated in education is because the only place Black males need to be by law is school. And so if we were serious about changing the lives of our young men, we would situate My Brother's Keeper in the school system. Now, when we made that decision, you cannot imagine how many people said, why are you doing this? You know, why are you never get this done? And by the way, some of the people who said that to me look just like me, right? So we've got lots of work to do, right? And Chancellor Banks, by the way, when we put together a blue ribbon committee, we had 60 individuals that helped us design the state initiative. The then David Banks, the now Chancellor Banks, was part of that blue ribbon committee. And you know, the history will bear out. However, here's the thing. New York remains the only state that enacted My Brother's Keeper in the state law with a budget. Now, that's important, but here's what I worry about. What happens if it's felt that they don't need to make the allocation? What do you think happens? And so that's why we need to hear from organizations like this, because I will say, having watched MBK's development under the leadership of Chancellor Banks and George Patterson, that, you know, New York is well on the way of having one of the strongest MBK cities in America. And so we ought to be celebrating that. So when we do something right, we ought to be saying it to our state assembly people, our state senators. Listen, folks, we can't let anyone off the hook. To your regents, we need to hear from you. The other point that, while I have the microphone, all of what we have that has benefited our young people have come from us. You know, we have an initiative right now, it's called the Higher Education Opportunity Program. Some of you out there may have gone to college and been a part of it. But here's what you need to know. HEOP was the brainchild of Arthur Eve, Deputy Speaker from Buffalo. And if you go on our website, you will hear the former Deputy Speaker say that God bless Percy Sutton because he modeled HEOP after Percy Sutton's SEEK program. So you see, initiatives that change lives start with an idea. And so here's what happened all these years later. What they don't want you to know is that HEOP was designed for what they call non-traditional college-going students. That's how they describe us. But here's what we know. The young people that have gone through HEOP and EOP, they graduate at a higher rate in 4 years than traditional college-going students. So what does that tell you? It says that when you have a deliberate initiative designed to help our young people will thrive. That's right. Right? It doesn't happen by happenstance. Don't let people tell you that, well, this is what we're doing for all children. All has never meant all. Right? It has never meant all. And so if we want to see Black males go forward, then we've got to focus on Black males. You know, we got to be very careful with this.
And Chancellor Banks, you founded Eagle. I remember you told me this story. You said 100 Black men were very intentional about putting the Eagle schools in specific neighborhoods where the data said it, they needed to be supported. So you actively went after those students that maybe other people from a data standpoint would say, we don't want those students. Sure. You embrace those students. What has been your lessons learned from leading that foundation? And how does your work with Project Pivot play into that?
Yeah, it all comes from a belief system. You have to genuinely believe in our young men, and more broadly, I would just say in all of our children. You got to believe in our people, and you have to believe in the community. See, I don't separate schools. I don't separate children from their families, first of all, and I don't separate families and schools from community. What we are doing, when the work that we do every single day with our young people, is about community building. That's what we're doing, right? And I'm very cognizant of that. And so it's not anything magical for me. It's just basic old school stuff, you know, Daddy Blake. It's old school stuff. You know, you take care of your kids, you wrap around them, you show them the love that they need, and it makes all the difference in the world. Kids need to know that you love them. First of all, there's nothing unusual about Black boys. They're just like everybody else. They want all the same love and the respect and to know that you give a damn. And that's all Eagle Academy represents. It's a paradigm of people who give a damn. That's what MBK represents. And people who really give a damn, and we're going to lean in. We're going to show you how much we give a damn, right? Because we love you that much. And we know that you are facing greater challenges than others do. So you can't just say, well, everybody's going to get the same thing. When this group needs more love, attention, support, they need more because they are under attack on a daily basis. They're under assault on a daily basis from all kind of hidden messages and everything else. Let me give you an example. One day there was a group, it was in Chicago, Cabrini Green Projects, right? And there was a murder that took place, homicide. And you had the reporter on the scene at the housing project. And he saw a young man, maybe 10, 11 years old. And he said, this young man apparently lives out here. And he said, young man, you know, how do you feel about what's going on here? He said, it's terrible. And he said, what are you going to do when you grow up? And the young man said, when I get up, I'm going to get me a gun. And they played that on the air. And the anchor back in the studio said, wow, it looks like the cycle will just continue. But here's what the young man fully said. He said, it's terrible. What are you going to do when you get older? When I get older, I'm going to get me a gun because I'm going to become a police officer so I can help save my community from the bad guys. Somebody intentionally cut that part off, right? To create a narrative. We need to be afraid of these, even when they're little black boys, they're going to grow up to be dangerous black men that we all need to be afraid of. And he was just an innocent young guy saying, I want to help my community. But somebody intentionally said, don't play that part. Only go with this part because folks have an agenda. So we can sit back and say, that's terrible. What I'm saying to you tonight is we have to be beyond the point of saying that's terrible. The question becomes, what are we going to do? What's the move? It's like a game. It's like a game of chess. Just because somebody made a power move, you can't sit back and go, whoa. Okay, you might say, whoa. After that, they're like, okay, what's your move? Sit back, analyze the board, and then make your move. That's what we need to do. We need to be making power moves every day. Not doing stuff that's cute, showing up at an event. That's cute. The question becomes, what are you doing when the event is over? What's your next move? And I'm saying this is an organization that you can be a part of. Project Pivot. Where are my guys from Project Pivot? Did they show? Stand up, guys. I just want y'all to see, right? That these are some of my brothers who are leading the work. Now, let me just tell you as I wrap up. Why I'm shouting them out, why it's important, is because they represent the embodiment of community. Each one of them is assigned to a different community in the city. And they are recruiting other community-based organizations into this space. We now have over 250 organizations who are leaning in to make a difference. These are the folks from our community who many of them were doing this work already and weren't even getting a dime for it. Meanwhile, we were giving $1 million contracts to folks who don't look like us and very often weren't that effective. I'm saying those 250 organizations, they all getting contracts now from us. That happens because you got me as a chancellor and you got these folks who are out there in the community. They know the community. They know what the various touch points are, mentoring, providing safe passage, leaning in, doing all the things that we need to do. And we're really just getting started. But that's why we need the collective BU community all working together so we are a force together. That's how you make real change.
So in the interest of time, because I know some of you are really hungry, I'm going to ask, I'm only going to lift up 2 questions, but the questions I have here, I am definitely going to forward it to both Chancellor Banks and Dr. Young. And before I ask these questions, just want to point out something. This is being live streamed throughout the country. And this live stream is being provided by a Black-owned, state-of-the-art live stream company. And I just want to give them their props for doing this for us today. Worldcast Live Media, under the leadership of Peter Lewis. Thank you so much. So we're going to close out on these 2 questions. Dr. Young, I know you had wanted to say something before, so if you want to, incorporate that. But the question is, will you expand funding? And I hear this a lot, and maybe you can help us understand this. Funding for MSK, My Sister's Keeper, to include young women in middle schools. I know there's always that question about MBK versus MSK.
The answer is the money for MBK comes directly from the state legislature. And understanding the politics of this, originally, we had to go to Carl Hastie. So I need to say this very clearly. If it hadn't been for Carl Hastie, we would never have gotten this. And in the first 2 years, the assembly carried this. In other words, they came up with the money. After the second year, the governor included it in the executive budget. What that means is once it's in the executive budget, it's there. It's there until you get a new governor and they make a decision. And so it doesn't have to be negotiated again. And so we can make all the requests that are necessary, but unless someone is saying that we need an MSK. See, here's what happens. The assembly, the assembly and the Senate, they hear from lots of people, right? They get requests every day. But understand the timing that we're in. You have a very short window. So if MSK is important, and by the way, there are districts all over the state of New York who are implementing MSK on their dime. What we're saying, what I'm saying to you, quite honestly, is that our young women deserve the same 18 million as our young men.
That's right. That's right.
But it's not going to happen if we're just sitting on our hands and not making our voices known. The other point that I would make, Dr. Monroe here, you should all know that a couple of weeks ago, I attended an event sponsored by the president of this college, along with Carol Mason, the president of John Jay. And these 2 presidents have committed to having the first MBK initiative at the college level in the country. Now understand, they're going to need support. And so when we stand up in our budget and legislative proposals and say we need this, we can't be the only voice.
So it goes right back to
that's right.
The through line that is through this conversation to me is advocacy, showing up in these places, and making basically a solo act, a chorus.
May I just please just 2 other points. Chancellor Banks made the observation about the Chicago media. We've got to be more sophisticated about how the media operates. The media's job is to create news, not report news, right? Think about what I'm saying. And so what has happened is we have allowed the media to transition from reporting news to creating news. Why don't we, you mentioned Dr. Bond, Crystal Bond. Yes, she's the superintendent of District 29, but she founded a school that was identified as one of the highest performing STEM schools in the country. Why isn't that news? Why we ought to be running to Dr. Bond to say, well, how did you do that? Right? And the school was in Harlem. How did you do it? And how do we replicate it? More importantly, how do we have it in District 29? So the chancellor's correct. All the answers in this room. The only thing we need to do is be committed to making those answers available and to sharing.
Thank you. My BU team over here is keeping me honest on the time.
Kick you out the building in a minute.
So last question was for you, Chancellor Banks. It's a career question. Is there a plan to reactivate vocational training citywide for the DOE, such as auto, body, plumbing, barbers, beauty salons, etc.?
A lot of that is already happening, right? We launched Future Ready NYC. We launched our Modern Youth Apprenticeship programs. I want folks to be clear though, right? The 21st century economy is changing rapidly. And so career and technical education, vocational programs, this is not your granddaddy's CTE stuff. Yeah, kids can come out of our schools now with credentials that'll get them six-figure jobs walking right out of high school. That's real. It's not shop class and wood class and stuff like it was when I was coming up. Real opportunities. And so we are working on expanding all of those kinds of programs as we speak. That work is happening. And I'll tell you why it's so vital. It's the bold future stuff that I talk about. My theme is Bright Starts, Bold Futures. Bright Starts, laying the foundation, make sure the kids can read, they can do that solidly, we make sure that they're on the right track in terms of their math proficiency and everything else. That's just the beginning, right? Ultimately, when kids go through our entire school experience, we want them to be able to take their positions in this economy. I want them to get good jobs. If they want to go to college, I want them to be able to graduate from college. If they don't want to go to college and they want to go right into the world of work, we want them to have the credentials that they need where they can be solidly on a track to the middle class and beyond. Otherwise, we just played around with sending kids to school. If you talk about from pre-K all the way through 12th grade, you know we spend close to $400,000 per student. Look at those numbers. We cry a lot about we don't have enough money in the schools, budgets don't have enough. Well, we spend almost $400,000 per kid. What should the return on investment be for that? We're producing far too many kids. They have no idea how government works. They don't know what's going on. They don't have no clue about financial literacy or how to become entrepreneurs. They were just going to school. They don't come out with any skills of any sort. That has to be wholly unacceptable. And that's what we're working on, trying to change that entire trajectory. Kids have to come out. And it's part of the reason why kids give up. Because we're not giving them good options. And oftentimes when they're in the middle of a lesson in school and they say, why are we doing this? And then they don't even get good answers. We're doing it because it's just a curriculum and the teachers don't even know why we're doing it. We're just supposed to follow the script. That same script that ensured that kids couldn't even read. That same script that you're just going through the motions of school. There's a difference between schooling and educating.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
There's a difference. So there's a lot of work that I still have in front of me that I have to do. I want to prepare our teachers at entirely new levels. You know, teachers need to see what it means to work inside a place, the four walls of Google and Microsoft, right? And the biotech industry and the fintech industry. Like, if you're a teacher and you don't have any idea what that workforce even looks like, how are you preparing kids? You cannot prepare kids for something that you have no clue what it even looks like. Just because you graduated from college and you love kids and you came back to be a teacher, very often we're teaching the same way we taught 100 years ago. The whole world has changed. They're finding water and carbon on planets. The folks are preparing to get up out of here.
All right, now
and we don't even, and our kids haven't even learned to read yet.
All right, now. Okay.
No. Let me tell you something. No, let me tell you something. I'm not being far-fetched when I tell you that. Be very clear. Folks are looking to the galaxies. Right? This planet has a lifespan. It ain't gonna happen while you're here, but you're already seeing the effects. What you gonna do when you wake up in the middle of December and it's 90 degrees outside? Stuff is happening before our very eyes. The mass migration of people moving from one country to the next. The proliferation of guns. We kill more people in this country than any authoritarian regime in the world. You better be teaching kids about what's going on, because if they're not aware of what's going on, you are like dooming them. And I told you the same way you reflect on your father and the lessons you got. My father said there are three kinds of people. People who make stuff happen, people who watch stuff happen, and people who wake up every day and go, hey, what happened? Right? The question is, where are you in that threesome? Which one of the three do you fit? And then what are you doing every day to ensure that those young people who are in front of you fit into that circle of young people who are aware of what's happening so that they can make things happen? A lot of our kids are just asleep, not because they're not brilliant, but because they don't have people in front of them who inspire them every day, who shed light on them to give them what they need. Because we are just going to school every day. That's not enough.
I just want to say,
not enough.
Just want to say, first of all, can we thank? This has been a very enriching conversation. You know, my father has a saying, an equation. And I think my father has an equation. An equation. And I think that it's appropriate for how we should end this conversation. And the equation goes like this: words plus action equals results. That's right. So we've heard the words, but I think we're being called to action. And if we respond accordingly, then we will see the results. And so again, thank you both for taking time to speak to us today.
Thank you.
I want to say, just a little caveat, I do not want anyone going into schools tomorrow trying to figure out the problems on Mars.
Why not?
I know it. Make sure we solve these problems with our children here on Earth first, and then we'll get to the Mars later. But we thank you, and I want to close out with just a word from our sponsor, and then we will have in BU we have a way that we do things. It was given to us by Elder Mama Rosalind, and we open up with an affirmation, and we close our meetings with an African affirmation. And so we will do that. I want to encourage you to go right across the street, literally on the chamber side. You leave out the front doors, across the street. The school over there has been kind enough to give us the facilities so that you can have a nice dinner and we can network. Again, thank you for coming out. And the chancellor told you, Dr. Lester Young told you, both chancellors who are lifetime members of BU, we have to get organized. We have to activate. And if you're not a member of BU, please join us because we need you. That's right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, man. All right, man. Please remain standing and at least let us close out with our affirmation. Shaka Fair is going to close us out with our closing ceremony. I want to give a special shout out to our elected here assembly member. Let's give her a lot of love, Monique Waterman, for being in the house.
Because of you, Mother Africa, we have new eyes to see, new ears to hear your song. We hear your voice singing in unity. We hear your voice singing Umoja and Harambe, pulling together in unity. It is a voice that cries out, "Stand up, my children. Be proud of who you are. As we depart this gathering, we give thanks to our leaders, our community, our members, and our race. May we share what we have learned, what we have promised, to light the thermal energy that we may prevail again and again. Let us pledge to be a vehicle against the institutionalizing of this organization, of keeping in front of our collective the purpose of our being, our values, our goals, and our symbols. We thank all of you for coming out tonight. We pray for the way that guides our actions to continue on, that we may prevail again and again. In the spirit of Sankofa, which means retrieving from our past, keeping it in our present, and keeping it for our future. We pray for the ways to guide our deeds and our actions. The African way is the way. It is our way. It is who we are. It is our culture. In the spirit and the joy of Sankofa, good evening.
Let's also give a round of applause to Erica Addy. Erica, come here. Erica, come here. This woman has been behind the scenes all night, handling all our technical needs. And we thank her for that. She's a valuable member of BU. We'll see you over at the school.
Thank you, Dr.